Next, we'll hear from Ryan Chapman, who is our head men's and women's cross country coach and also a new face in our athletic department.
Yeah, a lot of new faces as we get going. Excited to be here. Been almost a decade in the Chicago suburbs, so definitely a new location for me. But I guess in bigger news for me, taking over a very storied program. I mean, the last time this position was open, I was watching Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, it was almost 30 years ago. So very excited to be here and get to work. Questions, please.
Again, talk about following Steve's footsteps. Obviously, he's built a really solid program. How do you see yourself following in his footsteps or veering off and kind of making it your own?
Well, as far as the success goes, you definitely want to do the same thing, right? You don't want to set your own, path when it comes to to all the championships and the All-Americans and whatnot, and that can be daunting. My previous position, I took over for another coach, and the program was at baby stages. We had 5, 7 kids total, and it was much easier. This is a different program altogether. There's not too many programs. NCAA D3 have had this many All-Americans in the last 20 years. Not too many programs that have this sort of success. In many senses, this is one of the destinations, for distance running, in NCAA Division III. So it's daunting, but I don't think I would have taken the job with such gusto, with such gung-ho if I didn't feel that we could keep it moving and keep the trajectory. We inherited some really nice teams. The men's team, if there's such a thing, has too much leadership. We got 20 guys and 9 of them are seniors. So for many of our men's athletes, there's urgency. This is it. I mean, they're looking to leave their mark, to stamp down their legacy, in this program. So that's going to be fun. I mean, coming in and having all these leaders, people who've done it. The team's been very embracing as far as sort of a regime change. The girls are much younger. We do have 4 seniors, great seniors, but we do have good freshmen, good sophomores. So we'll be able to sit back and watch them develop a little bit, whereas with the guys' team, a lot of it is just really pounding our fists and saying, let's go. It's time to move. It's time to get rolling. The men did go to nationals last year for the first time in a long time. I think it was almost a decade since they'd been there. So they've had the experience, and we're looking to get back and really make some noise. And the girls are coming off a season where they missed nationals, which is something that the Wartburg programs haven't experienced in a while. And I think it will turn out to be a good thing. I think there is such a thing in sports as getting used to being good and getting used to making it to the next level, and you just sort of take it for granted. And our hopes is that the disappointment of last year will work as a catalyst towards furthering this year's successes. Yeah, thanks.
In the past, Wartburg, many sports, but cross country in particular, I was thinking of maybe a Missy Buttrey. Sometimes you get these D1 talents that come to Wartburg. How much does the school itself help in that?
Well, the setup's great. I mean, across the street, we did a hard workout this morning on our home course, and it took us 20 seconds to get there, across the street. The facilities definitely, speak volumes to the care that the school places on the sport. I'm coming from a background, the last 8 years, I've had no facilities, no indoor track, no outdoor track, and I can tell you it was tough. You're really selling something different, when it comes to training, when it comes to, sort of the little intangibles. We are set up to be successful, no doubt about it. There really is nothing. I don't see too many things that that a Division I school could offer their students that we can't offer. Maybe a full tuition ride, right? But we're set up for success. Goodness knows I'd love another Missy Buttrey. That's come around once in NCAA Division III history, or a Josh Moen or something like that. But we're definitely not going to shy away from recruiting those sort of athletes. I mean, we don't look at an athlete, whether they're an in-state, stellar athlete, or whether they're, from the neighboring states. I've had a lot of past success recruiting California. We're not going to say they're too good for us. we're going to get after them and try to continue, to bring those kids in, much like Steve was able to do, Coach Johnson was able to do, for 2 decades, almost 3 decades.
If you're comfortable naming names, who do you see as kind of your top front runners
Well,
leading the pack?
On the men's side, we have a very dangerous, threesome up front, in Eli Kaczynski and Kailas Katari and Jerry Frawley. I mean, these guys are good, and they came off great track seasons. I think Eli especially turned the page, in track season. We're really looking to those guys. But after that, we have some guys, some upperclassmen who put in great summers, just great summers. I mean, Joel Toppin's going to be, coming into a great season. Aaron O'Leary, a guy that didn't make a top 7, I don't think once last year, and I think he's going to be right there. Lee Scott, Zach Marpy, Zach Wells. I mean, we got a lot of juniors and seniors that are really going to be right there. On the ladies' side, I mean, we have 4 senior girls, and all 4 of those girls are great. I mean, Dakota Tell and Jacqueline Rickers getting better after an injury last track season. Jillian Feller and Kelsey Miner, very nice senior class that we have. And then some top 7 returners, all-region performer, Megan Silbernagel will be, she's in better shape now than she was at the beginning of last season. And we have Shay McEnany and Nicole Breitbach are, really talented sophomores that are going to be really, really good for us. But the girls have a lot of depth. I mean, we had a really hard time trial this morning, and the list went pretty far back of girls that are in fantastic shape, and we might not have the 1, 2, 3 punch like we do on the guys' side, but on the back end, we're going to be tough, on the girls' side, no doubt about it. So.
You probably, you did answer part of this question with your background at Aurora in the Chicago area. Do you see that as a good recruiting area with your familiarity being there for a number of years? And obviously, I guess I'm curious, how'd you get hooked up in California?
Well, Illinois is a great recruiting area, no doubt about it. It's oversaturated with recruiting. So, even though there's a lot of kids, sometimes it's hard to get them, especially, my program was young, and there were the programs that were already well established. So we pretty much got established in California out of desperation, in a sense. We started looking at, as the state economy, got worse in California, where the state schools weren't as cheap as they once were. There's a whole lot of kids that needed a home, and great, talented kids that weren't being recruited. Also, the West Coast is a lot more expensive, So that was really, and I wanted a free vacation out to California, and that certainly doesn't hurt. So that's where that came out of. But absolutely, I mean, we've already brought in some Illinois kids. Right now, much like California 6-7 years ago, the Illinois economy, should potentially help us. The state schools especially, it's harder for them, to give money, and we're not certainly going to revel in other states, misfortunes, but that doesn't mean we're not going to recruit the heck out of that state. So we have a pretty wide net. With Nebraska Wesleyan's addition into the conference, and I think this goes for any coach, Nebraska now becomes recruiting terrain, as well, as does Minnesota, who's always been a good friend to us. So we cast a pretty big net, for this sport, and hopefully aggressive recruiting is something that will continue to propel the program forward. On the men's side, I have 4 underclassmen, sophomores and freshmen combined. So, and 9 seniors out of 20. So we got to get to work. It's definitely one of those. Coach Gregg talked about the difficulties of recruiting when you're in season, which is real, and we're always in season. So it's just something that we'll have to balance it, and no doubt about it. I do a lot of calls with my speakerphone on, and I got my 2-year-old in one hand and my 4-year-old in the other. But that's part of the job. So thanks. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.